Hello, everybody. This is Mike Tedesco, editor-in-chief of Wrestleview.com, here with a quick reaction video. I'm going to be joined in a few minutes by Mr. Roy Nemer, who is our SmackDown recapper as well, who has been gracious enough to give us a StreamYards account to make all these wonderful videos for you on Wrestleview. I'm here today to talk about, wow, I mean, just in the last, about an hour and a half ago, WWE came out with just totally shocking news that they have made a number of cuts, 6 cuts to be exact, and this is just following a long string of releases. They started releasing people back in April, but today takes the cake on really astonishing releases here. Oh, good. I am joined here by Mr. Roy Nemer. He is here. There he is.
Hello. Hey, Mike. How are you?
Good, my friend. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Sorry for the delay. Technical difficulties.
Not a problem. I literally just got started. I was just about to read off the list of names that have been released by the WWE today, which is pretty. It's an incredible bit of people that have been released. So WWE has come to terms today on the releases of Braun Strowman, Aleister Black, Lana, Murphy, Ruby Riott, and Santana Garrett. Okay, Santana Garrett, they weren't doing anything with her anyway, but, I mean, there was news that dropped shortly after the announcement of her release from PW Insider that Santana Garrett was backstage at this past Friday's SmackDown and was slated to debut. This has happened a few times, actually. They did the same thing with Chelsea Green, where she was going backstage. She was attending tapings. She was going to SmackDown broadcasts, and then they wound up nixing the plans and releasing her. Same thing with Santana Garrett here.
Yeah, it's quite odd. Sometimes it's almost as if they're booking. I mean, we know that the WWE is very, when it comes to booking, they kind of write it as they go along type of thing. So this wouldn't totally surprise me, but it's still quite shocking to say the least. I mean, you have someone that's there on Friday, and then the next couple of days later, whoops, well, we're sorry. Good luck.
Right. But I mean, obviously, the biggest piece of news coming out is the release of Braun Strowman. It's not often that you see somebody who, for the last, basically since he debuted in 2015. I was there the night he debuted in Brooklyn. He debuted the night after SummerSlam as a member of the Wyatt family in the black sheep mask. Seemed very green at the time, extremely green. They didn't do much. The Wyatt family seemed like they were dying at the time, and they weren't going anywhere. They break Braun away from them. They split the brands in 2016. They start putting him in squash matches. Braun Strowman becomes super fun, even makes James Ellsworth a superstar because he squashed him, which is like the weirdest thing that's happened in the last, not really. I mean, I did watch a guy get burned alive in December, but definitely one of the strangest things.
He didn't die, though. He didn't die. He's still alive.
He did not die. You can't kill what's unkillable. And he was given a main event push basically from then on out, feuding with Roman Reigns, involved in the title picture. Always, seemed like he was always the bridesmaid, never the bride in that title picture scene until this past 2020, WrestleMania 36, Roman Reigns versus Goldberg doesn't happen because Roman Reigns pulls out because of COVID-19 concerns, and Braun wins the title from Goldberg. So he finally wins. I mean, and he was in the main event scene ever since. Really, like just involved in big programs. I mean, he, again, bridesmaid, never the bride. But his last match was at WrestleMania Backlash in the main event for the WWE Championship. And he gets the big WrestleMania moment against Shane McMahon. What do you think?
This one is out of all the releases they've had in the past couple of weeks or months. I know obviously Samoa Joe was a big name a couple of weeks back. This one for me is the biggest one. it seems like at the beginning when they first brought him in, they invested so much, and then they even had the WWE Network special about him. I watched it. He seems like a very down to earth, really cool guy. And then, like you said, WrestleMania moment last year, this year as well, throws Shane off, off the cage at WrestleMania. So it looked like they were slowly building some momentum back up for him. And then that was it. They have him in the triple threat, a really solid match. Him, Drew McIntyre, Bobby Lashley. They did very well. Kind of almost stole the show. We spoke about it, and that was it. And then he's kind of been sporadically on and off television. They don't know what they're doing with him. I believe part from, and this is just me absolutely just guessing, but Braun is the type of person where if you go through his Instagram, he's really into, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, I'm a big advocate, but like mental health and stuff like that. And he spoke about that in depth in his WWE Network special. So I'm kind of wondering if them having him off TV recently has anything to do with that. Maybe it's more of a him thing than them. Maybe he's not quite ready to go back on the road just yet. It could be a bunch of things, but regardless of what it is shocking. This one's a big one.
Well, a release is pretty final too, and I did hear that coming out of the match, the triple threat match, he did have broken ribs, or at least pretty bruised up ribs. So I understood keeping him off there. He did make an appearance last Monday on Raw, saying that he's excited to go back on the road and stuff like that, and can't wait to bring the Strowman Express to town or whatever was said. Wasn't used on Raw this week, and this release really just kind of seems like it came out of nowhere. And same thing with Aleister Black, another guy that they were giving him the big repackage, and he just made his return on SmackDown. They seemed like they were positioning him for Big E. Like, what say you about that?
Yeah, that was an odd one. I mean, they've spent the past month and a half or so kind of building him up, those promos backstage, those little vignettes, and then they hype up the big Intercontinental title match 2 weeks ago on SmackDown. It's the main event. They hype it up to no end. Aleister Black shows up unannounced, plays a big role in the match, and Apollo Crews retains. And you're like, okay, wow, so they're actually pushing Aleister Black here. And then he doesn't show up. They have a little vignette on him on SmackDown. Doesn't show up. And next thing you know, fast forward to Wednesday, good luck, in your future endeavors. This is an odd one. And even him, he tweeted about it, obviously. And he said this came out of nowhere. This came out from left field.
Correct. I was just getting ready to pull up that tweet there. He said, I'm gathering my thoughts as this was a complete left field for me. As obviously we just started the Dark Father character, but this was it. Thank you so much, WWE Universe, for allowing me to create and give you small bits of myself. Wow.
This was, and what makes this even more interesting is because when there were rumors a couple of weeks ago that Selena Vega is potentially coming back to the WWE, to the company, people were like, oh, okay, well, this kind of makes sense because Aleister Black is getting that big push. So, I would not have predicted Braun nor Aleister Black, but out of the two, I would have said, no, they're probably going to keep Aleister Black considering everything they're doing with him, and not the case. This is an odd one.
It's extremely odd, and there's a lot of speculation because obviously they made a couple cuts a month ago, or now it's June, so I guess it's almost 2 months ago. They released a bunch of people, and now this. I don't know how big Braun Strowman's contract was, but he was a main eventer. I know that he had a multi-year deal with them. There's been a lot of speculation amongst the internet people that WWE is getting ready to sell.
I mean, look, this has been going on for a couple of years now. People are always saying, "Oh, Disney's going to buy them out," and it's speculation at this point.
I don't think that if you're selling, you're not going to sell a product. You're not going to release a product like Braun Strowman, for example, that they put, years of big hype and push into him. Like how many 18-wheelers and ambulances have they destroyed, having him knock them over, kayfabe and all that stuff. It's like they gave him the big money push. I don't think that number one, I don't think that he makes enough money where it's like, oh, that makes a big difference. Now I feel comfortable buying it. Yes, they are cutting departments. They're consolidating departments that that serve like a redundant purpose. It's like we don't need digital and a live media. We can just make them all into one.
But that's most companies now, right? I mean, because of COVID and everyone working from home, and every company is kind of restructuring. So I feel like that's normal to a certain extent. That's why, I get that. But the whole, they're getting ready to sell, like you said, I'm not going to say that's far-fetched, but I don't see that anytime soon, to be honest, especially now that they're actually going back on the road again and money's going to start coming in. And obviously that means more expenses for them. But at the same time, they will be making money. No company is going to work at a loss. So it's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, I see in the chat room some people are speculating that that Braun Strowman may have requested the release. I would agree with that if everybody else if his release wasn't piled in with a bunch of other ones. I mean, Aleister Black, just basically said that this is completely a total surprise. I don't think they're just gonna fire a couple people just to throw off the scent on Braun Strowman. I do think that this was a planned move. I mean, the Samoa Joe thing was just as surprising. I mean, I thought that was the biggest release of the year until this one.
Yeah, I mean, Joe just. Sorry, go ahead.
No, Joe, obviously, in his tweets, the very few that he's put out, this was not expected. He was surprised by this. It's really, really, it's surprising. Really, really surprising.
Yeah, and everyone they've kind of, released recently has always been on television, at least in the past month. I mean, even going back to the Iconics, yes, they weren't doing too much with them, but they were at WrestleMania, or at least Peyton Royce or Billie Kay was. And then Samoa Joe commentary and Strowman at Backlash. So they're regulars.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. They were involved in regular television. Like Billie Kay had a wonderful character going on, and they wound up giving her the kibosh. Now Ruby Riott, like you were saying before, she's involved in a tag title match this past Friday, and now she's gone. And what does that mean for Liv Morgan? Obviously, they see a lot more in Liv Morgan. I think they made a big mistake, trying to do that weird angle with her and Lana that got dropped immediately. They did the vignettes for her where she's in the bathtub and being seductive and all that stuff. And that, those things hardly ever work out, by the way. It's I remember the Evolution reminds me very much of the Evolution, which she made one appearance and she was gone. But it's just surprising that the names that they do keep. I mean, Aleister Black, him being off of SmackDown, it's not really going to impact the show. But Braun Strowman being released really, really impacts Raw. What main eventers do they have now? They've been giving Kofi Kingston this 2-week push, toward the main events again. It's almost like that started happening because they realized Strowman is they're getting rid of him.
I mean, and looking back in hindsight, yeah, it absolutely looks that way. Or else you would have you would have done something with Strowman at least, and now you're pushing Kofi again, and there's nothing wrong with that.
No,
yeah, it's an odd one. I don't know what they're thinking. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if next week Sheamus is released. At this point, it's crazy.
No one's safe. No one's safe.
No.
And I mean, obviously they're trying to catapult Kofi get back into the main event scene because the Raw main event scene just got so much weaker. It's basically Drew McIntyre, Bobby Lashley, Kofi, Randy Orton, and if they play Riddle right, he could be there as well. But
potentially, yeah.
It's so anemic, and Lana, I can understand. I mean, if there was anybody that might have requested a release, it was probably Lana. I thought she would have been gone long ago. After the Rusev release, but that's the only one that I can possibly see that might have requested. But regardless, if she was just straight up let go because we're okay, we're done with her, that women's division is so anemic.
It's
anemic.
It's dead.
There's quite literally no one. There's no other teams for Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke to face other than Nia Jax, Shayna, and the tag team champions. And now SmackDown just lost a tag team with Ruby Riott, and the Riott Squad's obviously a thing of the past now. I don't even know what other tag teams they have going on there. It's just like, yes, Lana and Ruby Riott, they're not going to make a difference. They're not going to be needle movers, but they're at least pieces in that division that you could put against Charlotte, you could put against Bianca Belair, you could put against Bayley or whatever, whoever.
No, now, exactly.
Significantly weaker. And like I said, they're not going to be needle movers, but they were fillers, waiting for the next bit of recruits to come up.
And you need that. Maybe not so much on SmackDown, but on Raw when it's a 3-hour show and the women's division is depleted enough as it is, and now you just got rid of not only two talents, but one that actually works as a tandem, as a tag team, and you desperately need those. It just makes no sense whatsoever. It'll be very, very interesting to see if we get any more cuts before they actually go back on the road. I feel like we're going to get more.
Very possible. Very, very possible. Now, and another thing to kind of, because a lot of people are saying, maybe they're selling, which I don't agree with. I think as long as Vince McMahon's alive, that company's not going anywhere. It just isn't. Like they always say, we'll listen to offers, but I don't think that's going to happen. Now, there is a class action lawsuit that WWE settled, and this was, this doesn't make major news. It's just not going to make major news. People don't really care about WWE corporate dealings. They like the sexy headlines, like, they're going to sell. They're going to like, no, that's not going to happen. But in November, I think it was November 2020 or October 2020, a class action lawsuit was opened up by the city of Warren, Michigan, their police and fire retirement system, I guess where they kind of funnel their pensions through. Obviously to make the pensions grow, they make investments, and they claim that WWE executives deceived investors over their business dealings with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. They allege that the company stock was inflated with $280 million worth of shares selling at what they believed to be fraudulently inflated prices. Now, WWE didn't want to go through the class action process. So what they did was, which is kind of an indictment on their business dealings with Saudi Arabia, Roy, they settled for $39 million. And that settlement was given preliminary approval by a judge in New York in March, which means that this preliminary settlement looks like it might be coming to a thing where they're going to pay $39 million. Maybe, it's rumored that their insurance carriers will foot most of the bill, but maybe they're making cuts because, they're building that brand new corporate office in Stamford, and now they got to, foot a portion of a $39 million settlement. Maybe it's just as simple as that.
It could very well be. It could be that as well. Maybe they know, or maybe they're planning ahead in terms of, okay, what if we get another lawsuit? What if we get another settlement? Well, what are we going to do with COVID as well? We said obviously the restructuring of companies, and WWE is a big company. I know people like to shit on them, but they're an international company. So it could be a lot of things. Could be they're probably looking at their investments, what we can do, what we can get rid of, what we can keep. And it could, or honestly, like you just said, it could just be that. It could just be the settlement as well. $35 million. I mean, $35 million is still $35 million. I don't care if you're I can't even speak anymore. If you're $1 billion company or not, $35 million is $35 million. That's a whole lot of zeros, and they got to pay for that somehow.
Right. And I mean, releasing Braun Strowman still, that's a stunning one, because you would think, especially going back on the road, the Raw roster, I went through the Raw roster on my show a couple weeks ago and just showed just how thin it was in general. It just got thinner. And you're going to be going on the road trying to fill up 3 hours, I don't care how much money you got to pay, find a way to make smaller cuts. It's like, it's amazing that Jackson Riker and Elias are going to be having a featured feud now, and Braun Strowman is out of a job. So.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. And also, I mean, Strowman brings in money. I mean, merchandise-wise, he's not bad. You see the kids wearing him. He's popular with every group, with every age group.
Without question. And main event of WrestleMania Backlash, a very featured match. I thought the build was maybe, other than, it really rivaled Fiend and Randy Orton for how bad it was. The build to Shane versus Braun was atrocious. but they gave him the big spot. That was definitely a featured portion of the card for night 1 of WrestleMania 37. Like that, they invested a lot of money into him, and I imagine that the merchandise sales weren't that bad. People like the Strowman Express. I mean, I still remember the live crowds. They were into him. There were moments where Braun Strowman might have been the most over guy on the Raw roster.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a stunning development. Obviously, there's going to be more that comes out on this in the coming days and probably the coming weeks as well. We heard from Aleister Black so far. We haven't heard from anybody else, but I imagine we'll be hearing from them soon. So we'll see what happens. On that note, that's a quick reaction from me and Roy, and we're gonna wrap this thing up. But we'll be talking about this in the days to come. I know you'll be talking about it on the SmackDown post show on this Friday, right, Roy?
Absolutely. It's at 10:15 p.m. immediately following SmackDown right here on our YouTube channel. Make sure to like, make sure to subscribe. Leave us a comment. What do you guys think of the releases? What's the most surprising one for you?
That's absolutely. Like this video, share it, subscribe to our channel if you're new viewers, and we'd love to have you with us. This Sunday, obviously, Wrestleview Weekly with Doug Lackey. I'm sure he'll be talking about this as well. And on Monday, Victoria and I will have a lot to say as well, I'm sure, because it's going to be, we'll see what happens on Raw this Monday. On that note, I'm Mike Tedesco. That's Roy Nemer. Take care, everybody.
Thank you for joining.